Hello and welcome to another episode of the JR No Rider and Row Show.
Wow,
We're here for special guest. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, I'm the special guest. My name is Dave Antoine. I'm a man by many different aliases. I am the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, sagacious, conscientious, analytical, methodical individual. I am the Chiseled Adonis. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But I'll pass it to Mr. JR.
Oh man, welcome back to another episode. As you guys heard before, this is not Smack URL, but it sounds like we have a battle rapper with us because that was one hell of an intro. Fellas, how y'all feeling today, man?
Feeling good.
Feeling all right. Feeling okay.
All right, because like we did in the first episode, now we got a guest. So the first thing we're gonna do, Mr. Dave Antoine, like what name would you prefer us to call you by?
Well, in high school, we all went to the same high school, so I guess you could call me Gonzo.
All right, Gonzo. All right, so Gonzo, the thing that we do on the podcast, especially when we have a guest, well, you being our first guest, so it's going to be the inaugural state your affiliation. Me and Ro did it from episode 1. So here we go. You got state your affiliation, basketball, football, favorite player, so we get all the biases out the way. Let's get it.
Okay, so football, and for those who don't know, I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I consider myself an aficionado of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Favorite player of all time being Hines Ward. Right behind him, current favorite player is Antonio Brown. Now, if we go over to basketball, favorite player right now, Dwayne Wade. I'm a Miami Heat fan. I wasn't bandwagon. I was there before Dwayne Wade came. I was there when Eddie Jones was there by himself. And now I'm still a Heat fan, rolling with Hassan Whiteside and Dion Waiters. And over to hockey, although too many people don't believe black people watch hockey, I happen to watch hockey. I'm a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Sidney Crosby, that's my man right there.
All right. You stated that you're a Heat fan. How do you feel about the Heat's upcoming future?
I feel confident as long as Dion Waiters can stay healthy. Because upon the ending of the season, the last 2 weeks, they were about 3 games out of going into the 5th seed. And evidently he sprained his ankle. Day after they get eliminated from the playoffs, this man's on a blow up alligator in a pool. So he got to get his priorities straight. But I'm feeling a little bit confident about the Heat moving forward.
Yeah, we all know players like that from both of our teams. I know JR, you know the Andrew Bynum situation didn't work out too well for you.
Of course, the man chose to go bowling when he was supposed to get knee surgery. Then the following year, the man chooses to go to the FIFA World Cup for soccer all the way in another country. And it's like, then thank God when we got rid of him, he switched to that disgusting hairdo.
Yeah, gave him get that perm. I don't know what that was. Mushroom on his head.
I don't know what that man was doing. But Gonzo brought up his Pittsburgh Steelers. And last time we saw the Steelers, they were facing a team.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
In the AFC Championship, who ended up being the Super Bowl champions, who came back from a 28-3 lead, the New England Patriots.
Oh.
Personally, I respect the Steelers. I respect them. They're like that blue collar team in the NFL that they always got their stuff together. They're a well respected franchise. Me and you, Ro, we're talking about this. I believe last episode about the Pittsburgh wide receiver factory.
Right.
And you being a Steelers fan, I want to know what is going on with that scout team that for the past 10 years, you guys have been able to draft these Pro Bowl receivers. Like, I don't know where you guys are finding them. Like, for us, New England, we find the running backs. We find these running backs out of nowhere, and we make do with, what we got. But you guys over there in Pittsburgh, I don't know. You guys got like the all-seeing eye. You guys been drafting Pro Bowl receivers, not even in the first round, because Antonio Brown was a 6th-round pick.
6th-round pick.
So how do you feel about your Steelers, making those great draft choices?
Well, it all starts with Kevin Colbert, our general manager. He's one hell of a person picking up people through the draft or through free agency, whatever the case may be. Now, regarding wide receivers, going back from Hines Ward in 98 and going to the early 2010s where you got Mike Wallace, or I should say 2009 with Mike Wallace.
You can go back to Santonio Holmes.
Yeah, you could go back to Santonio Holmes, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl 43.
Yeah, had Plaxico
over there.
Burress too,
Yeah, Plaxico Burress in early 2000 picked him up. He ended up leaving, going to the Giants, helping them win a Super Bowl. But in the receiving core, it's always deep. Last year, in the beginning of the year, with the suspension of Martavis Bryant, who I'll get into him a little bit later. Pause. But with Sammy Coates, I did touch on it last episode where this man, he has no fingers or anything like that. But when he did have his fingers, he was catching deep passes. At one point, he was number 3 in the league in receiving yards, and now he went down. Then we had Eli Rogers, who was missing the entire rookie season of his season. He came back last year. He had a stellar debut for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we already know about Antonio Brown, arguably the best receiver in the league. I can't give him that title anymore
Julio
because that man happened to have a wonderful playoff run. Who is named Julio Jones. Unfortunately, in that Super Bowl, could not cap it off with that ring. But it starts with that front office, man. They're wonderful with drafting new talent. However, it's only been on the offensive side of the ball over the last, I would have to say, decade. We haven't really had any stout, big-time defenders outside of Ryan Shazier, and so far on the outside, our outside linebacker position, we have Bud Dupree, who's looking like he's going to be a stud. But for Pittsburgh, they're going to need to fix that secondary if they want to move forward in the AFC, or I should say in the playoffs, to get to that Super Bowl.
Do you believe that some part of that defensive breakdown has to do with Dick LeBeau leaving the defense?
Not necessarily, because although we did have our new defensive coordinator step in, I believe what was it, Keith? I believe Keith Butler, which is his name. He stepped in pretty good, and Dick LeBeau leaving, he did change with the philosophy of our defense, the core of what it is. But ultimately, the players just got to come in and execute, because Keith Butler's defensive scheme is no real different from Dick LeBeau, but the secondary, it just has to step up, because if you look at the front seven, they're still one of the best front sevens in the league, but that secondary, they cannot get it done. In fact, they didn't have an interception up until, I believe, week 14, so they're struggling back there. They gotta step up big time this year.
Because I think one thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, like they usually, like, they take care of the skill positions on offense. They always take care of that, but on defense, I see that they're more concerned about the linebacking core and the D line, and when it comes to the secondary, you guys are always shaky. Yeah. And do you think it's something where it needs to be done in the draft, or you guys need to not pay as much for certain positions and cut back and try to focus on that defense? Because I feel like that was the thing that held y'all back, because offensively, you guys are one of the best offensive teams last year. I had about maybe 3 players from your team on fantasy football last year, and Le'Veon did great. I had Coates at one point when he was actually catching the football.
Yeah,
he was pretty decent, and I had Ben Roethlisberger in about 2 leagues. And I felt like the thing that held him back was, he was putting up all those points, but when it came time to defend, the offense constantly get back on the field because the defense is just giving it up left and right.
Yeah, and it's terrible, because especially against the Patriots, although we did have, I'd have to say the last 3 years, we'd had an injury to Le'Veon Bell, which took a big portion of that offensive scheme out. But in my opinion, that defense, for some apparent reason, our corners can't play man-to-man defense. And anybody who knows the Patriots, the philosophy of trying to stop the Patriots, if you can't play bump and run, you can't play man coverage, you're never going to win. Because you need your corners to be able to defend those fast receivers running those routes between 3 yards to 10 yards. Because the Patriots don't really run too deep.
Take away the short game, and the Patriots that's one of the Achilles heels for the Patriots.
And then you saw what happened with Chris Hogan, where now you had the Pittsburgh Steelers tried to do something. Let's play zone, let's blitz and have a zone backside. But if you play a zone, Tom Brady's gonna murder it.
Of course.
He's probably the best QB against the zone all time. And if we speak about QBs all time, he's already arguably the best. I put him into that slot of arguably the best. I'm not going to give him the cap for the best yet, because, Montana still has that effect on me. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, regarding the secondary, they need to get it together. They have to find some corners who can play man-to-man coverage. They drafted one corner out of Tennessee, and I'm hoping he can play very well. And we also have Artie Burns, who had a down beginning part of the season last year, but they picked it up towards the end. Still got Mike Mitchell back at safety. Sean Davis, he's making a name for himself. But we need to have that big name player in that secondary to replace the greatness that was Troy Polamalu.
All right, so you went into details about the defense, but one of the biggest things that was coming out of Pittsburgh during the offseason was Ben Roethlisberger contemplating whether or not he want to retire or not. So in this new age of football, well, Roethlisberger comes from, like 10 years ago, but he's getting up there in age. But we're seeing that like him, Drew Brees, even Peyton Manning, towards the tail end of his career, and now Tom Brady, quarterbacks who are approaching 40 but still relatively productive. So during the offseason, they were tiptoeing around that Ben Roethlisberger was contemplating, retirement. Do you think it would be wise to start looking towards the future, start looking for another quarterback, or like through the draft, or like picking up a free agent, or you think you should just ride the Ben Roethlisberger train until he feels like it's time for him to hang it up?
I personally believe they should have possibly started looking for a QB now. They did pick up Dobbs from Tennessee as well. But my original plan was to possibly, whatever happens this year, utilize whatever players you might have. Like, for example, Le'Veon Bell has had his off-the-field issues. You have Martavis Bryant. He's had his off-the-field issues. Yeah. So this year, they should take this year, whatever, put 100% into it, try to win that Super Bowl. After the season, take one key piece and try to trade it so somebody can give up that early pick so you could pick up Darnold from USC and then have him go behind Roethlisberger. Because I'd rather have a situation where you have a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, where you have that QB behind and he's being molded to get ready. Like, I do have faith in Dobbs, but I don't know if he'll be a franchise QB, especially how Pittsburgh happens to play their offense along with Todd Haley calling those plays. Now, with Ben, I don't think he was serious too much about retirement, given that you did have 3 straight years where you had the opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. 2014, you had Le'Veon Bell get hurt the week before the playoffs. They lose to the Ravens. Then the year after that, they lost in the divisional round after losing not only Le'Veon Bell for the rest of the season, in the midseason, you lost D'Angelo Williams a week prior, and then they end up losing by a touchdown to the Broncos, then last year losing to the Patriots after losing Le'Veon Bell early in the game. So it feels as if they're taking a step forward. You losing the wild card, you losing the divisional, then you losing the conference championship. I can understand as a former player, not in the NFL of course, but as a former player, I know what it feels like to have that failure. You feel as if you're on the pinnacle of getting to where you want to go, and now that stress sets in, so you sit back and say, you know what, is this really for me? But ultimately he did come back, so I am feeling confident, but I do hope the Pittsburgh Steelers look forward to possibly getting his replacement, or I should say his predecessor moving into the future.
Now, speaking of that Ben Roethlisberger situation, how do you feel because of his play style? Because he does take a lot of hits being a big quarterback. He sometimes brushes them off, but he gets hurt a lot. So do you still feel like he would come back next year, even after taking all those hits again this upcoming season?
I do believe he would come back next year because they've molded this offensive line. It's the same situation that happened with Dallas. Because last year, when you talk about offensive lines, a lot of people, they talk about Oakland. You talk about Dallas. Dallas is usually the first one that comes to mind. But quietly, the best offensive line in the league, if you look statistically, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because they've given up the least amount of sacks for like the first time since the mid-1990s at that point. And then regarding rush after before contact, they were number 2, I believe, behind Dallas. But if you incorporate passing and running the ball, they were quietly the best offensive line in the league. So I do believe if they can stay healthy, because Marquise Pouncey has had his injury problems over there, but outside of him, that offensive line, they can keep him healthy. And I ultimately believe if they go deep into the playoffs or possibly win that Super Bowl, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger would ride into the sunset just yet. I think his players, maybe a Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, possibly even a Mike Tomlin, could convince him to do what they did with John Elway in early, or I should say late 1990s. Hey, come back for one more season, and ultimately won 2 in a row.
Right.
All right. So you were talking about the defense. A player that's a free agent right now because he got released last week. We were talking about what teams he would fit best with, and I thought, he would Pittsburgh would be the best bet. I'm talking about Jeremy Maclin, because I felt like Jeremy Maclin would have been a great pickup. Because I understand, you guys have your defensive woes, and you need to fix the defense. But I think with the inconsistency of those receivers, with the on the field issues, like with Sammy Coates with being injured, then you have the Martavius who has the trouble with the marijuana, and he ended up getting suspended. I wouldn't really bet on those players. Simple fact that they're showing you on and off the field that they're kind of inconsistent, but their production is there. you know. But I would say that a player like Jeremy Maclin will probably fit into Pittsburgh perfectly, and he could complement an Antonio Brown. So I wanted to know what was your take on a player like Jeremy Maclin? Do you think he could fit in that Pittsburgh system?
All right, so I do believe Jeremy Maclin can fit into the Pittsburgh system. I truly believe he can be a number one receiver on a different team. But in Pittsburgh, he'd make one hell of a slot receiver. In contrast to what's going on in New England, he can be Edelman, but more in the slot, or I should say Danny Amendola. Yeah, he can be more of that role, but on the field much more than Amendola is for the Patriots.
Yeah, because he's a bigger body.
Yeah, he's a bigger body. He has sure hands. I don't think he's a flair kind of receiver like they have out, like Tariq Hill in Kansas City and other DeAnthony Thomas. Because in Kansas City's philosophy, they dump the ball off, you catch it, and you make what you can with what you see. You got to make defenders miss. I personally don't believe Jeremy Maclin's that kind of receiver. I think he's more of a possession receiver like he was back in Philly. He did have those certain spurts where he would go deep and then he has those big plays, but ultimately he's more of a possession receiver, so I do think he would fit in wonderfully in the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, the team that I believe he should go to, or he should get in contact with, is the Baltimore Ravens, because the Ravens, they don't have a number one receiver. Yeah, they lost
Steve Smith.
They lost Steve Smith to retirement. You just ended up releasing Dennis Pitta, who was basically Joe Flacco's BFF. Yeah. He was the Jason Witten for Joe Flacco. So now they don't have anybody to throw the ball to. They have Aiken, but Aiken's really not that good. He gets hurt probably, I'd say, a fourth of every season. You're not going to have him, so they need that number one receiver. And there's other teams that definitely need one, but ultimately the Ravens is the first one that comes to mind.
That's shocking that you would, want a player like that to be in your division, because usually, the Pittsburgh and that Baltimore rivalry, you will want the other team to not flourish, because last year and the year before, and Ro, you could attest to this, because I was constantly complaining to you about this, that summer where everyone decided, let's team up and go to the AFC East. That's when Ndamukong Suh ended up on the Dolphins.
Yes.
LaShawn McCoy ended up in the Bills. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are all these players, making that move? And Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker is in New York. Matt Forte went to the Jets. And I'm like, what is going on? Everyone's coming to my division. So I find it shocking that you want a player like Jeremy Maclin to play for the Ravens, who are like your arch nemesis.
Well, I can't speak for Mr. Chiseled Adonis here, but myself, I want my team to have the best competition so they don't get rusty. So I'm happy that the Broncos and the Chiefs and the Raiders have improved, because I don't want my team to just be there bypassing being the champions of the division with no competition. I want them to be able to beat the best, so when they get in the playoffs, they have an already established way of how to play for competitive competition.
And I could agree with that, because in the tail ends of the 2000s, especially with San Diego, I should say Los Angeles now, they were in a situation where they were blowing through their entire division. Mm-hmm. You had Kansas City at that point where the only person they had on offense after Priest Holmes leaving was only Tony Gonzalez. And then if you went to Oakland wasn't good at all since the Super Bowl loss.
And the Chiefs kind of had Larry Johnson.
Yeah, they did have Larry Johnson for 2006, 2007, then he was gone. And the other team that was out there was the Broncos. And the Broncos, they were struggling because they did have that 1 year with Tebow Mania. And then after that, they dropped off. After Jake Plummer was gone, they had nobody. But the one thing with the AFC East was all of these big name players were going over there. But still, the one consistent for I should say since Jim Kelly retired for the Bills, there hasn't been a consistent starting quarterback for the Jets outside of Chad Pennington, for the Dolphins outside of Chad Pennington, and for the Bills, nobody.
Yeah, nobody.
So the only person who's won the division for other than the Patriots in the last 17 years was the 1 year in 2002 with the Jets, led by Chad Pennington, and 2008 with the Dolphins, led by Chad Pennington. So it seems like the AFC East, and this is my one critique with Tom Brady is he's had a cakewalk in his division.
What?
For the last his entire career. I'm not saying it's not something like a LeBron in the East. Mm-hmm. It's something like I'm not saying he doesn't have the competitive competition, and the Jets have always been a good matchup for them. But in his division, it's always a give me of about 4 games, at least 4 games, going into the postseason for the New England Patriots, because he hasn't had that opposition like that Peyton Manning in his division. That doesn't exist. Like for Phillip Rivers, he's had to go against now Peyton Manning. He'd have to go against now a Derek Carr. He has to go against an Alex Smith. Now, they may not have been that elite to that high level, but there's still that competition there. With Big Ben, he's going against an Andy Dalton. He's going against a Joe Flacco. Nobody really in Cleveland. Yeah. And then things like that, they've always had that competition against them. With the Patriots, they're not playing against a QB who can take their team down the field consistently.
But the thing is with the AFC East, like you said before, like not to compare with LeBron in the East, you really can't control your competition because you have people like Rex Ryan who, like cashing out these checks that he could not, put money behind. Yeah. So those 2 years where he had those AFC championship appearances, those were Eric Mangini teams. So when people want to sit there and big up Rex Ryan for what he did those first few years with Mark Sanchez, that was all those players on that defense were players that literally Eric Mangini drafted. Those were his scraps, and you may do with what you had. And as far as the Bills hasn't been relevant since those 4 Super Bowl losses. They haven't been relevant. The Dolphins, I feel like, but like people probably get upset with saying this. I say the Dolphins play us the toughest.
Yeah, I agree.
Out of anyone else in that division.
I agree.
The Jets will have, like, all right, I'll give the Rex Ryan Jets, they will always split with us. They will always find a way to sneak in and win. Even when we had Moss and Dante Stallworth, when we had that miraculous team, the Jets always played us tough. And I felt like within the past 10, 15 years, the Dolphins has been the only one. But the Dolphins been so inconsistent also because look at Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is not an elite quarterback, but for some reason, he believes that he's going to get paid elite quarterback money. And I feel like in order for that division to fix themselves, they need to lose the fear of, we're going against New England. New England is so big and bad. The thing that I love about my Patriots, we don't go after those big names.
Yeah.
And these teams, especially in our divisions, they think, I'm going to go after this big name, and he's going to be the difference between us winning 8 games and us winning 10 games. And with us, we try to get homegrown talent where you start off on the practice squad and you work your way up. And we'll get like this year, like we'll get a Stephon Gilmore, we'll get a Still and Brandon Cooks. But for the most part, we usually have journeymen on our team. And with the other teams in our division, they want that marquee name. Yeah. And there's times where that marquee name is not going to play up to his name because you're getting him past his prime or at the tail end of the peak of his prime. So you might get good stats from him, but one player is not big enough to get a 53-man roster to get wins every week. Because you know that pivotal position, that primary position is the quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback to leave your team or have that guy on defense to solidify that defense, those teams are always going to be in second and third, fourth place in that division. And New England, for some reason, they get their stuff together. And I feel like back to Rose's team with the it feels weird saying this, but the Los Angeles Chargers, I feel like this is probably the best that the division has been so far, minus the Chargers. I feel like the Chargers are just a few pieces away of getting their stuff together because Phillip Rivers, he balls out every single year.
Every year.
I watched every single Chargers game last year, and they were in almost every single game. It's the team that let them down. And you got the Broncos, who upgraded and got Jamal Charles this year, and you have Marshawn Lynch going to the Raiders. They're retooling their teams, and they're trying to put their best foot forward. And I feel like the Chargers, I don't know if it's a front office thing that needs to change, but I feel like Phillip Rivers has been consistent for the past 10 years. It's the pieces that are around him that are not stepping up.
For the Chargers, it's not that the pieces aren't there. It's the pieces are getting injured and hurt a lot.
True.
The past 2 years, I have no idea how many offensive linemen have gone through that team. I can't even count on my hands and toes. It shouldn't be that high. It's too high. What I would do, whoever the strength and conditioning coach is, get rid of him ASAP. I don't know. Listen, hire me. I'll have my mom make leg game the whole team eat leg game, make your bones strong and everything.
It's like
you know,
spinach,
yes.
Man. Take one scoop and it's over.
It's like I don't know if we had pieces that were on the field, because we have phenomenal pieces all together. They might not be big names, but they could, when they're together and they work like well-oiled machines. And then the past year we had, I believe, 5 losses where we was up and we lost them all in the fourth quarter. And it's like, it's impossible. And it didn't even start from last year. It was from 2 years ago, maybe last year, 2 years ago when Ray Rice was on the Ravens. We was up against the Ravens, and then somehow Ray Rice gets a screen.
4th and 29.
And there was there were a couple of
Super Bowl
flags that did not get thrown on that play as well. But
a lot of holding, a lot of blocking in the back,
clipping, blocks in the back. But even so, that play should have never happened. It should never got to that point. So it was like, I don't know if it was the coaching. And I like the new coach that we have now. I feel like he's not going to let things slide. He's going to hold players accountable. It's the fourth quarters of this season have been complete disappointment. I don't know if the players just gave up or they weren't mentally ready or they were just too fatigued. But I believe we have the right pieces as long as we have the mental capacity to like keep everything together and don't get tired or just like get too lax towards the end of the quarters. We'll be all right.
Because with to piggyback off of you with the Chargers, they can't be a manual car because they have absolutely no clutch. Like this team, the first 3 games of the season, they lost. Week 1, you lose Keenan Allen. Week 2, you lose Danny Woodhead. Week 3, you lose Monty Te'o. And when you were talking about them not being able to close out games, the first 5 weeks of the season, they lost by, I believe it was a total of 7 points. They simply could not close. They lost the game to the Browns in a game that they should have won. You had kicker, Josh Lambo.
They had 10 sacks that game. Ridiculous. If you just look at the stats and you see 10 sacks against the Browns, you're thinking the game's in the bag. They had 10 sacks, I believe, like 3 interceptions. And I look at the score because I was at work. And I look at the score and I see they lost because the kicker missed a field goal. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
He missed 2 in the last 3 minutes. Joey Bosa had a coming out party. Had 2 and I believe he had 2.5 sacks that game. And going back to the whole strength and conditioning coach, he needs to be like murdered by firing squad. It's ridiculous. If he's the same guy who was there from the LT days, I don't understand what he's changed with his philosophy. That team, they need to restructure what their philosophy offensively and defensively is. And their offensive line, like Romario was saying, it's ridiculous. They cannot keep a set lineup going. They had at least, I'd have to say, maybe about 18 changes to their offensive line the entire season. And if you don't have that chemistry with that man next to you, you can't get anything done. And we saw that happen with the New York Giants in the NFC East, because their offensive line gave up, I believe it was only 19 sacks. They were number 2 behind the Pittsburgh Steelers in the least sacked QBs the entire year. But for some apparent reason, when they got into the playoffs, I believe it was the rookie Flowers, he couldn't block a soul. He was getting beat every single play. He's holding. And when you have a situation like that, Eli Manning under duress, he throws a bunch of interceptions. Yep. So a lot of these teams, they have to rebuild. A lot of the teams, they have to rebuild, especially this upcoming season, because the way that I see it in the NFC, it's up for grabs.
Yeah, the NFC, I feel like there's only like 3 legit teams in the NFC right now. There's only 3 legit teams. And I feel like Seattle lost their mystique. Like, I don't think anyone should fear Seattle anymore. Russell Wilson has been playing, I wouldn't say subpar, but he hasn't played on the level that he played when they made those, those championship runs. I feel like the Cardinals are falling apart because Carson Palmer, he's getting up there in age. Larry Fitzgerald is still Larry Fitzgerald, still Larry Legend. David Johnson is one of the best running backs in the league. Honey Badger's still there, and Patrick P is there. But it's the pieces that's the thing. We all played football. We all played football. We all know that it's a 53-man roster that comes together as a collective to get the wins. And with the Chargers, Phillip Rivers is showing up. He's showing up. He's doing his best. There's times where you can see him frustrated after a play where he's looking at receivers like, "Yo, you were supposed to run this route. I threw it to you, and you're half stepping," And it gets to a point now to say, like, I understand you said the strength and conditioning coach needs to be changed. What else you think besides that can help the Chargers? Because the NFC is getting weaker, but the AFC is getting stronger.
Basically, everybody just has to be able to be there and be wanting to play. You can't have people who coming in and not ready. Like you said, because due to injury, a lot of new receivers came up, and then the timing and the chemistry wasn't there. So you have Phillip Rivers getting upset because he's saying, "Hey, you should have went in instead of going out, or you should have did a hitch instead of doing a vert." You know what I'm saying? And you can't have that inconsistency when it comes to certain players. You can only rely on Keenan Allen, who hasn't proven he could stay a whole season there, and an aging Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry, who's pretty much stepping up, but he's had a couple concussions, I believe, the past season.
Yeah.
But besides that, and we had Terrell Williams, and people were saying, "Oh, where these receivers coming from? They're doing phenomenal." Yeah, you see the big plays that he's doing, but you're not watching. If you're watching the game, there are a lot of minor plays that he's missing out on because he's not him and Phillip Rivers are not on the same page. So I just believe it's like a learning process. Everybody just has to be able to put in the extra work to be there. The same thing goes for the defense. People has been in and out. The D-line, I'm happy that they changed to a 4-3. I think that'll benefit Bosa. And
Yeah,
and especially the line. I believe we have a solid linebacking core, even though we did lose Teo. I wasn't a big fan of him getting drafted a while back, but watching his play, he did improve, and he wasn't the best player that they projected him to be, but he was a solid linebacker.
He's gonna be a player that's gonna be around for at least maybe 12 seasons in the
but
league.
I believe he's on the Saints now, so they got him. And my highlight on the defense, I love my cornerbacks on the Chargers, and Hayward and Jason Verrett. I love them, and the person
I had Hayward on fantasy football.
And we got
we
got the corner in Desmond King. I was hoping that we had a guy in Desmond King, and we got him. I'm happy that they got him. People. He got drafted late, I believe in the fourth round.
Yeah.
But he's going to be I believe he's going to be a good piece, a playmaker possibly in the near future.
I was highly upset that Desmond King fell that low, and I remember texting back and forth with Romario about that because I was begging for the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft him. I even slid into their DMs and told them, "Hey, draft this guy. He's still available." But ultimately they didn't. He ended up going to the Chargers, much to my chagrin. But I do believe the San Diego Chargers, they can turn around because they did change that. It starts with the head coach.
Yeah,
and they got rid of Mike McCoy. And personally, I like Mike McCoy's philosophy, but he's too passive. He's like Barry Switzer when he took over for Jimmy Johnson with the Cowboys in 95. He's not on the players. He's not. He seems like he's very lax. He's calm. He's just happy to be there.
Like he's not that in your face and get after you after one little mistake type of coach. Yeah.
Exactly. He's just letting the players go out there and do whatever you got to do. And going back to what Romario said regarding with like the leadership, because offensively you have those two staples being Antonio Gates, Phillip Rivers. Outside of that, there's nobody else. You have Melvin Gordon in the backfield who's emerging, but he doesn't have that leadership in the backfield. There's no Lorenzo Neal to LaDainian Tomlinson. Regarding wide receivers, you don't have that Keenan McCardell trying to show the ropes to Vincent Jackson. You didn't have anything like that for the receivers. So once you have Keenan Allen go down, and the way that the NFL has this traveling policy now is when these players, if they're out for the season, most times you won't even see them on the sideline. They don't even travel with the teams. So who's in that locker room for the wide receivers leading them there? Because if there's no way you're telling me Terrell Williams is the number one receiver and he's going to have to be the guy telling everybody, hey, let's go. And I believe there's another guy, Illman, who is number 2.
He's been on the team a while now, but he's always been that receiver that's been there in case people got hurt. So we haven't really seen him too much.
Mm-hmm. So they're definitely going to need somebody. I don't know if they picked up a receiver. I believe they did.
Yeah, but he's hurt too. I think he has a herniated disc.
See, they cannot catch a break at all. But who do you think is going to be the team that emerges, like the big surprise team for this upcoming season?
I say Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I like that.
I say Tampa Bay.
I like that.
I've been saying Tampa Bay's looking like a good team for the past few years. And going back to the Desmond King situation, the reason why I do believe he fell to the 4th round is because the height issue. Nowadays, everybody's looking because of the Seahawks with the 6 foot corners. Everybody's looking for that 6 foot corner, 6 foot and up corner. if he was, I think he's 5'10", 5'11". If he was at least 6 foot or 6'1", he would have been highly a first round or maybe a mid-second round pick. Because if you look at his college career, he was arguably the best college quarterback in the past 2 years. I mean, cornerback in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So now let's shift over to the NFC. Of course, you guys know there's always like the holdouts during OTAs. This guy Odell Beckham still hasn't shown up to OTAs, and they're reporting that his contract issues. He wants to get paid like Antonio Brown. Like I personally think he deserves to get paid that money, but in the slew of all the things that's been going on, from the infamous boat pitcher before the playoff game and how they played flat in the playoffs and they lost, they're saying that he's easily distracted, but now he's becoming a distraction for the team. Right. You know, he had that one-on-one fight with the kicking net. He lost, and he reconciled with the kicking net. But he's been like I don't want to call him a drama queen, but he's kind of a drama queen. Like you can see that mentally he's able to get off his rocker easily when he was going back and forth with Josh Norman, all because they had bats in their hands before the game and he lost it. So you can tell that he's very like emotionally. I wouldn't call him emotionally unstable, but you can see that he has thin skin. So now that he's holding out, how do you think when he finally do come back? How do you think he's going to be able to, approach that locker room?
I think he'll do okay. The reason why I said that is because a person the Giants have now is Brandon Marshall. He kind of went through those personality trait issues. So I believe with the help
and the mental issues also.
Yes, the help and guidance of Brandon Marshall, he could kind of somewhat help Odell soothe his issues with the personal issues and being a distraction. And also all the instances that he had last year, they're going to hurt him in the contract negotiations. They're going to be like the boat picture, this, that, and third, and the whole kicking that thing, and the whole you and Josh Norman. Yes, you have performed way more than we expect you to, or maybe to the extent that we expect you to do, but you got to understand everything else that you're doing off the field can somewhat become a distraction. That's going to hurt you in contract negotiations as well.
Because with Odell, the thing that I have with him is that he's one of those receivers that's bringing back the diva, what used to be with like the Ocho Cinco, the Randy Moss, the Terrell Owens. But a lot of people, they say he's a bigger crybaby than Dez Bryant, because with Dez Bryant, that's all passion. He wants to win. Yeah. He hasn't been this huge distraction off the field. Odell Beckham, it seems like there's an issue every single game. Because if you look at what happened with the Giants, the first early weeks of the season, it was Victor Cruz who was upset he wasn't getting as many looks. Then in the middle of the season, it was Sterling Shepard, who's a rookie coming in. So that just tells you something about the leadership in that locker room regarding their receivers. There's no reason why a rookie should be begging, trying to get targets. If you're getting looked 5 times a game or 4 times a game, if you're a rookie, you have to earn you have to earn your stripes. And then later in the season, it was Odell Beckham getting upset that he wasn't getting the ball. So if you're still the number one option, you're seeing 10 targets per game, and you're still complaining about more. How am I supposed to trust you, especially as a GM, especially as a coach, or even a position coach, having Brandon Marshall now walking in who demands the ball every single play? And because he does have that bipolar disorder, he is taking medication for it ultimately, yeah, but when you get into the game and that passion kicks in, you want the ball in your hands. So if you're Eli Manning, it's going to be a situation like where you had Terrell Owens on one side and Chad Johnson on the other side. Ultimately, they were both playing hurt that season, but had they both been healthy, how do you distribute the ball between these two? And you also have your people in your backfield. You want to dump off the ball over there. So with Eli Manning, who doesn't really make the best decisions as a quarterback outside of the playoff runs, in a regular season, he's somewhat a little bit over average. I don't know how he's going to be able to distribute the ball to both of them evenly.
I like that you bring that up, because recently Victor Cruz was on the Breakfast Club. And, of course, Ro recommended me to watch that interview. And some of the things that he said that happened that last season with the Giants, I went back and I was watching some highlights, and I kind of understand where he was coming from. What Victor Cruz was saying, that management was purposely telling Eli not to throw him the ball. Wow. So there were, and that was a crazy claim at first, but when I went back and watched some of the plays that he was referring to, there were times where Victor Cruz was wide open wide open, and Eli makes a throw. He'll force it into double coverage with Shepard, or he would throw it to Odell, and it will be like a one-on-one, but Odell would have a misstep, and the ball will go over his head, or the defender would like bat it down or something. So he revealed a lot of secret things that go on in the NFL when he was referring to players who have incentives. And he said that there were times where you needed to play that in week 17 and play that 16 game to get that extra money, and the medical staff will come up with a BS injury and say, "Oh well, we feel like your hamstrings are kind of tight, so we're gonna sit you this game."
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that? Because now he's playing for Chicago. Of course, he's gonna be probably one of the primary targets in Chicago because they got Trubisky. And
Alshon Jeffrey left and went to Philly.
He went to Philly, so that team, they're actually going to utilize him. So now you got Brandon Marshall on that team with Odell Beckham. Do you think that Odell Beckham will take a back seat to Brandon Marshall, or you think that it's going to be something where Brandon Marshall will be in that Victor Cruz position? Because I think Brandon Marshall is way more vocal than Victor Cruz, because you've seen his days in Chicago and his days with Denver and his days in New York. Anytime he felt some type of way about something that's going on in the team, whether it was his quarterback or the play on the field, he will call you out. He calls a spade, and I respect that about Brandon Marshall. So him being on the Giants now, how do you think that dynamic is going to work out?
With Brandon Marshall, I don't think like what you said, he's a very assertive player. And not only does he speak to the player, he speaks to the media because he's extremely honest. So whenever the media asks him a question, he's going to answer, kind of like what Terrell Owens used to do in the early 2000s, and ultimately they got on him for that.
Yeah.
And he ended up having to censor himself. But with Brandon Marshall, it seems like that's never the case. He'll say what's on his mind. And I'm happy you brought up about when Victor Cruz was talking about with the training staff holding players back. That actually happened last season with Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo, because he did have there was an incentive there regarding with if week 17, if he were to get hurt, he would get paid
more money,
a whole lot of money. And then what happened? Week 17, they sat him and said, you know what? Yeah, he's not the guy. And they come out and say he hasn't been the guy for us for X amount of months. Ultimately, you still keep him on the roster, and he's projected to still be the starter next year. So what was the purpose of sitting him? So Victor Cruz is right on the money, but I do think in a sense he did help his cause to expose what's happening in the NFL, but he's also hurting himself a little bit, because you'd have to wonder how many teams play on that philosophy through management. So if he goes to Chicago and he signs that contract, are there incentives for him that they might hold him back from trying to receive? But I am happy that he did come out and say that. But with Brandon Marshall, I do not see that happening to him at all. I think Eli's going to have to feed him the ball, because especially with film study, when you're going, and I did see some of those highlights, and I did see some of those Giants games where you have Victor Cruz running a post, he's running wide open. Eli would eye him down and then make it seem as if he's looking off the safety to throw it into double coverage to try to get it to Odell. And with Odell, it seems like he only wants the highlights rather than trying to get to the Super Bowl. Because after the season, I believe it was 2 months after the season, he ended up writing a post, I believe it was on Instagram or something, saying he's going to be locked in, he's going to be focused, he's going to try to be the best receiver in the league, all this other stuff. But you haven't seen any videos of him being in the gym. You haven't seen any videos of him running on the field. All you see is he's at the finals. He's somewhere at a soccer game.
He's somewhere with Dan. You know Dan is the man.
Yeah, he's somewhere over there.
About 15 videos with them together. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing?
He's on every big social media star. He seems to be in the video for that. He's just out there having fun, enjoying his money. But all these other players, you see Antonio Brown, yeah, he's celebrating, but every Instagram story he has, he's in the lab, he's working. You got Julio Jones, very quiet. Nobody's really watching what he's doing, but if you want to go to his social media pages, what is he doing? He's in the lab. He's working. Calvin Johnson, when he was in the league, he was always working out.
Guy, man.
He was always working out. So Odell needs to get his mentality straight. He has to focus on what's important, because if you want to be the best, especially those like Chad Ochocinco, or I should say Chad Johnson, when he was in the league, he was working every single day. He may have talked, and he's still working now.
He was working with Antonio Brown about a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they was out there. They were working. They were on the field.
And
Terrell Owens is still out there
Antonio
too.
Brown on a couple of routes too.
Yeah, he did.
Shout out to
he was playing corner.
Yeah,
on Antonio Brown. He was locking him up.
Mm-hmm. They had, and he's out there. He's playing, and he's approaching 40. T.O. He may be going into the Hall of Fame, although he was snubbed the first 2 years. Snubbed. But
It's ridiculous.
he's still working. He said he has no issues. If a team were to call, he could be the first player to come out of the Hall of Fame and go play football. So these guys, they really want to be the greatest. I don't think Odell Beckham wants it. I think he just talks about it.
I think Odell is fallen victim to this generation of social media. And if you see the great players, like, even though I'm not a LeBron fan, you know how I feel about LeBron, Ro, but I respect the fact that he does his 0 dark 30 as soon as the playoff starts. Like, look, this is my last post. I'm
social media.
I'm not on social media. And you guys got you got guys like Odell where everything he does has to be documented. You know, like, he has to be on Instagram, has to be in someone's video from Vine back in the day. You know, so social media plays a big part of what's going on now, because that's probably the fastest news outlet out right now, because Odell could record something and post it up on Instagram or post it up on Snapchat, and we can all see it before SportsCenter can report it.
Yep.
So the whole boat picture thing, we all seen it before ESPN made a big deal about it. So now, how do you feel that social media plays in this generation of sports? Because you got your boy Antonio Brown, who got into hot water for recording the press conference with Mike Tomlin. Because you already know we all played under the same high school coach, and you know how fiery he was giving out speeches, and certain stuff should stay inside the locker room. So in that moment, you know, he messed up and he recorded it and he caught flag for it. How do you feel that social media plays a part in this generation of sports?
I don't like it being outside of sports. Like, if you're doing it on the field, taking pictures on the sidelines or whatever, you know, having, like, showing the highlights or whatever on the field, whatever. But when it comes to besides sports and you just showing everybody you're doing in your personal life, that can come back to attack you. I'm a person myself. I don't, you know what I always say, no IG. I legit only have one social media, and that's a Facebook. And it's like too much people are like craving the attention.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like some of these players like Antonio Brown and Odell fall into. Yes, they are great, but sometimes that social, always walking off the camera on record or taking pictures of everything, could come back to bite you in the you know what. I was watching ESPN when the boat picture came out, and a lot of the past players was like, yo, that's not a problem. Yeah. Back in the days, you probably had tons of people doing that, but nobody knew that. Nobody knew that had happened. So it's like a week and a half before the game, and you on the picture. Like, honestly, I don't believe it has a problem. It had no effect on the game because he didn't get injured on the boat. He wasn't intoxicated. No police came on the boat or nothing like that. Nobody reported anything suspicious or no crazy activities. It's just that people was there, and everybody's going to have to criticize you on that because that's their job as part of the media. And sometimes social media can come back to haunt you.
And I agree. I do agree with that, because thinking back to Deion Sanders, he was one of the people who said it doesn't matter that much as long as you go out and perform.
Yeah, of course.
Because the Super Bowl where they played against the San Diego Chargers, unfortunately for you, in 1994, Deion went out. He was in the club. He was on the strip. They were partying every single day. And I remember Jerry Rice, he came over and said, yo, we got a Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. We got to be serious. Deion looked at Jerry Rice. He told him, we're going to beat the brakes off San Diego. And what happened? They went out there. They scored 55 points and won the Super Bowl. In Odell's case, that didn't happen. He went out and had the worst game of his career in a playoff game. So it makes you wonder, you know, where's his priority? And going back to what you said about Antonio Brown, the thing that I had the biggest issue about it was, it's one thing if you wanted to let the people in on what goes on in the locker room. It's a different thing if you're getting paid for it. He was getting a 6-figure contract from Facebook to go inside the locker room and record. So now you're asking yourself, are you doing this for the money, or are you doing this to show the people what's going on? And like you said before, when we played in high school, our coach, whatever he said in the locker room, that stays in the locker room. Because I remember my senior year when we were going into the playoffs, there were already tabloids saying, yeah, they had a marvelous run, but this is where it comes to an end. We sat there for about 40 minutes. We had everybody got up and spoke about what the season meant to them, what the career at our high school meant to us, and trying to get that done to go into the playoff game. Had this been a situation where somebody's on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, something like that, if the opposing team sees that, you're just fusing.
bulletin board material.
Exactly, and you're fueling that fire. I picture what happened with the Patriots and the Steelers. I don't think it played that big of a role because Belichick's going to do what Belichick does. Yeah. But you can't tell me that doesn't fuel the fire in some of the players because they're saying, oh, you see them trying to overlook, or you see some players over here, they're celebrating, they're having a good time. The way that I see it is the journey's not done until it's done. You win week 1, yeah, it's okay to feel good. But you understand you got another week coming. Game 2 is on the way. You have to stay focused at all times. And I think social media is kind of destroying the game in a sense because people are more they're more focused on their own personal gain than the gain of the actual team.
I think some of the best players in the league, like we brought up with Julio Jones, those players that are usually like on the top level, like the Aaron Rodgers, you don't see them that much. Like, you see them in commercials. They'll make appearances here and there on different shows, but they don't care for the media attention. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you can put Odell in that of diva receiver, where he wants that attention. He's doing the dances after he scores. But I think I agree it's hurting the game, but I feel like social media is another way of marketing for them. Yeah. And for you being the social media expert, I want you to take the floor, explain to the people listening how you use your platform to get across, because you're a former athlete, and another former athlete that I'm gonna bring up that's similar, Spice Adams.
Yeah.
Like, for myself, who personally play football, we all play football also. The skits that he does, and of course he's a former player, so he bangs it on the nail. The stuff that coaches says and everything. And he's one of my favorite social media people. I can't believe we call him a social media person now because he used to play for the Chicago Bears. But you are a person also who make videos and use social media. And of course, coming from the sports background, how does that help you create your content?
Well, it's all about not necessarily creating the character, but expressing yourself and getting people to relate to what you're doing. Because especially with Spice Adams, him being a former player, he brings what happened in the locker room out on film, but in a satirical manner or in a comedy form. So when he did the video, I believe it was maybe about 2 weeks ago, or not 2 weeks, 2 months ago, where he did it about the type of player in the locker room.
Yeah.
Every single person, no matter what sport you may have played,
you can relate to
everybody can relate to it. Mm-hmm. And then with me, I make videos where I'll do commentary on something, but I'll say something that people can relate to. I'll always try to get people to relate to the things that I'm saying, especially with social media. But the thing is, when you're a player, an active player, you got to try to keep it all business. Or if you're gonna do it like to get some jokes or stuff like that, then you can do that as well. But if you advertise every single move that you're making, it does a disservice to you, because now if your GMs are following you, your coaches are following you, or something like that, and everybody can see it, now your opponents can see it as well. Because I wouldn't be surprised if certain players do film study on what they're doing to practice as well. Because if I see you're practicing this route every time, and I see you're running the route the exact same way, I don't have to watch film anymore. I'll see what you're doing
I'll know, like,
from practice.
After 15 yards, I know you, after 15 yards you're gonna make that cut. All right, so now I'm playing I'm a cornerback, so now I know, all right, when I'm shadowing you, I know exactly when you're gonna make the break. So now I can anticipate the cut and cut you off and get the interception or back the ball down. Yeah. So you said something about the social media, about how other players will be watching other players through social media. Something that happened 2 years ago, Johnny Manziel.
Yes.
This man, he did the ultimate social media. He did the reverse Bow Wow challenge, pretty much. So he went to Vegas when he wasn't supposed to be at Vegas. He was supposed to be traveling with the team, and he was their starting quarterback. So to get himself out of trouble, he took a picture of his dog in the hotel room and put a location in Cleveland, but everyone saw him in the club in Vegas. So that right there, like, it further proves your point where people are watching. Yeah. Your coaches are watching, the opponents are watching, and that's how you end up on ESPN. And I feel like with the league now, I don't think that they should put restrictions on social media, but they should be certain rules of when you're allowed to do certain things. Like, how the NFL, when Chad Johnson, he almost got in trouble for this, when he tried to sneak his phone onto the sideline. And that's when they created the rule, you can't tweet or post anything mid or before the game. And you have to wait. I think what, like 20
like,
minutes.
Yeah, I think it's maybe about 20 minutes
Yeah.
after. I believe before it was about like an hour, but now I guess
they cut
they've
it
let
down,
it slide.
because they know that, because even with the Thursday night football games, some of those games are broadcasted on Twitter. So the NFL are trying to work with these social media platforms, but the same way, too much of anything is not good at all. So I feel like social media is not too bad for the players, but when the players are like relying on it too much, that's when it becomes a problem.
And the thing is, like, there are a few people who use like social media and other broadcasting networks. Like, we all know Brandon Marshall does a thing where he probably choose to go to stay in the New York area with the Jets and the Giants because he goes to a broadcast to perform a show.
Yeah.
Spice Adams, he does all this. He's a retired football player. He's not doing it during the season or thing like that. And even from your team,
Edelman.
Julian Edelman has a show, does skits on YouTube, but I'm sure he's not doing it during practice time or times where it's critical moments for the football team. He's doing it maybe when they have a day off, or maybe when they have a break in between, like a playoff game or something like that, or when the season is over, or like after, or like it's about to be OTAs now, voluntary. He doesn't have to go there. So maybe during that time, when it's not a distraction to the team, he does his skits. So it's all about when you pick and choose to use those platforms.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think once they realize how much power social media has, I think that's when they'll start wising up a little bit, because that part of social media, when you're already a name and a big name, your brand is everything now. It's what you post, it's how you tweet, and I feel like with Antonio Brown getting paid for by Facebook to go live, no one knew about that until the Pittsburgh situation in the locker room. So I feel like a lot of players now will see that as, you know what, if Antonio Brown could get paid for this, then I'm gonna do the same thing. Because NFL Sunday Countdown, they had this series this whole season. The players every week they would pick a player and they'll follow that player from his hotel room or his home to the game. And so you can even see ESPN is incorporating social media in some sort. So I would say social media is a gift and a curse, and depending on how you use it or how much exposure you're giving the people inside and letting them inside to see what's going on, I think they should limit it. I won't say like on like give rules on it, but I think the players should wisen up and be like, you know what, I need to relax. I can't let everyone in, because the cameras are there 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, even on the field, like most of the marquee players are mic'd up. So when we go on NFL Network and we see NFL films and there's always a special, everyone is pretty much mic'd up. So you're gonna have your platform regardless, but I think some players need to just tone it down. So before we wrap things up, we didn't discuss any basketball yet because pretty much, you know, Cavaliers are dead. Series is pretty much over. But Game 3 wrapped up, and the Warriors are up 3-0. What do you guys think is going to happen in Game 4?
You want to go?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the way that the flow of the game was yesterday, I think the Cavs have a situation where they need everything to go right in order to walk away Game 4 victorious, because they're in a situation where they have to run the table. And thinking of football, they don't have Aaron Rodgers on the bench saying they're going to run the table. So I don't, outside of LeBron and Kyrie and that one game won from Love, you have nobody who's helping them. So they're struggling at every aspect of the floor. They've been out-rebounding 2 out of the 3 games. They've been destroyed by the 3 ball by the Warriors every single game. The fourth quarter has been dominated by the Warriors every single game. Third quarter, with the exception of this quarter, this past game, they've lost the third quarter. They can't go into halftime with a lead at all. Their bench is being destroyed. They're getting decimated on the defensive side of the ball. They can't do anything right. And it seems like with LeBron James not being able to play the full game at the same intensity that he did in the first half, they're gonna struggle. Because if you looked at the statistics, they have it online to where LeBron in the second half it's not even close to what he is in the first half. His field goal percentage in the first quarter is 70%. His field goal percentage in the second quarter is 71%. In the third and the fourth, it's 40, and then it goes down to 36 in the fourth quarter. He can't, and he's playing crazy minutes. So you can't expect him to play at the same height every single quarter. And Kyrie's coming along, but that's only one player.
You're one player.
That's only one player. You can't win the game, especially in basketball, with only two players playing basketball. You need somebody on the bench. You need a Channing Frye, who was in a suit yesterday. You need a Kyle Korver to come along. You need J.R. Smith to put up some points, possibly in 20. They need somebody to put up 20 points outside of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving.
I think the problem with the Cavs right now, it's the players are playing. The role players are not playing to their best ability, but Kyrie and LeBron James are playing at the best of their abilities. LeBron is averaging a triple-double. Kyrie's giving you 30 points. It's the other pieces. Like I said before, when we're doing the preview of the finals and after the first two games, it's the other guys that got to step up. And some of the fact that Channing Frye and Derek Williams didn't suit up, didn't play, that's a problem. That's a coaching problem now because that game was a close game. One excuse that reporters are using was fatigue. Okay, if you're noticing fatigue, all right, that's not on the players. That is on Ty Lue. Yeah. You have your rotation, and I don't care when people be like, oh, well, on a 12-man roster, the coach usually only rotate 9 players. Cool. That's 4 guys on the bench that you rotate. Cool. If it's not working out with those other guys, last time I checked, Channing Frye was giving you guys production during the season.
He was lighting it up.
So I don't understand how Channing Frye is playing during the regular season. Come the finals, he's nowhere to be found, but he was playing in the first 2 series.
It doesn't make sense to me. And the thing about the fatigue thing, it's understandable to the point where I know I don't want to sound like I'm an OD LeBron lover right now, but we all could see it. When he goes on the bench, the team just like they run around with their, like chickens with their head cut off. They don't know how to operate. Like he goes on the bench and like let's say they're down by 4. He goes on the bench, they're down by 10 or 12. It's like how they don't know how to run their offense when he's not on the court. And that's what he was like asking for when he was asking for a playmaker. Everybody thought he wanted another superstar. He wanted somebody who when him and or Kyrie's on the bench, somebody could come on the court and run the offense smooth. And they got Darren Williams, but Darren Williams is not doing nothing. He's not running the offense the way it's supposed to be ran. And it's like also with the coaching, I'm saying this too. It's like, yes, Richard Jefferson did something last year. Sometimes he gives you that little spring, but it's like, where's Channing Frye? Derek Williams is was
a younger body.
Yeah, he was. Everybody was hype and happy for Derek Williams being on the team. He's a young dude. He's a big body. Throw him at Kevin Durant. Throw him at Steph Curry. Throw him at Klay Thompson. Even Draymond Green. You know what I'm saying? But the coaching is not going in that direction. And another reason why I believe they're not doing as well. Tristan Thompson, he's a good center, but he hasn't been the Tristan Thompson that we know for the regular. He's not the energetic getting the rebounds and things like that.
He has to go.
And more importantly, he's not even producing because, well, we can't go with the Kardashian curse. We can't say that. I believe it is the Kardashian curse. There is something inside of that poontang pie that just makes everybody play, or I should say live their lives to a lower degree after they leave them.
And the track record is horrible.
It's terrible. Every single one. I made a video about it. Go check it out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. Instagram. Go check me out at Chiseled Adonis. But with Tristan Thompson in the paint, for some apparent reason, he can't post up. He can't box out. He can't do anything. He's not that type of center. He's the type to get you the offensive rebound. He's basically like the Dennis Rodman type, but he's not too close to Dennis Rodman, but that's the best person I can compare him to. He's energetic. He's not showing no energy, and I believe, I've been saying this for a while, he's a good center, but he's kind of undersized. And this is where they was going for a big man, because if Bogut didn't have that crazy injury when he only played like 10 seconds, and I don't know why they didn't give Sanders a chance. They would have been critical pieces in this playoffs, because Zaza Pachulia and Draymond Green could have been. I mean, Draymond's been in foul trouble already, but they would have been in more foul trouble in the game if they just had some kind of big man presence in the paint where they could just like, all right, give me some easy 2 points. Bogut 7'1", 7'2".
Yeah.
Larry Sanders is a good legit 7 foot, something like that.
No, Larry Sanders is like 6'7",
6'7".
6'8". Yeah.
But they could give you that presence, and they're not afraid to go hard in the paint. No Waka Flocka, but they needed some kind of presence, and they needed somebody who was able to take control of the offense when Kyrie and LeBron are not on the court. And you can see that they don't have that. So during the offseason, something's going to have to change for the Cavaliers.
That's and ironically, earlier in the playoffs, we saw the exact same situation with the Oklahoma City Thunder. When Westbrook went to the bench, they could do nothing. Now, a lot of people, they'll say, oh, but you have Kyrie on the floor. Kyrie's playing, he's only playing about 1 or 2 minutes less than LeBron. Mm-hmm. It's not like he doesn't get fatigued either. And when you have people like Tristan Thompson in there who hasn't even had a game in the finals with more than 5 rebounds. The most he's had is 4.
Steph Curry had
10 rebounds, and Tristan Thompson only has 4. And not only is he not catching it, he's being outboxed out by Klay Thompson. There was one point where Steph Curry boxed him out. There's no reason why you're that big, you can't catch a rebound. This past game, they gave Kyle Korver 24 minutes. He was in there, and he got some solid shots up. He got some good looks. But for the Cavs, and they've been out-assisted every single game as well. And it's not even by a close. It's a lot. This past game, I think Golden State Warriors had made about 40-some assists, maybe even 51 assists, something like that. And the Cavs, they can't keep up. They're not in a situation where people are getting off of the pick, getting a shot up. Because you do have times where Iman Shumpert has a wide-open shot. He can't knock that down. Deron Williams in Game 2, he couldn't knock down a shot.
I don't think he scored this whole series.
I think at one point, I think he had like one give me layup or something like that, or probably from the free throw line. I don't know what the deal is, but they're struggling around the floor, period. And defensively, the Warriors have had at least, I'd have to say, 7 open 3 attempts. They haven't made all 7. They probably made 5 out of 7. Klay Thompson shooting out of his mind these past 2 games. Steph Curry can't be defended. KD's like Jordan-esque on the floor so far. He's the MVP right now without any sort of opposition against him. There's nobody else who you can make the argument for. It's impossible for this Cleveland Cavaliers team to win if they don't have that other guy putting up the points. With the Lakers, you saw it in 2010 or maybe even 2009 when Metta World Peace came off the bench. I believe it was that Game 7 against the Celtics. He put up 20 points. He put up 20 points. You had Trevor Ariza against the Magic. He came in and put up the points. Lamar Odom put up the points.
Players need to step up. They honestly need to step up. And I think the problem with Tristan Thompson is I kind of see why it took so long to negotiate his contract. And like I said before, some of these guys, the only reason why they're on the team is because LeBron vouched for them. Like a JR and a Tristan Thompson. Like I said before, JR would probably be playing in China right now if it wasn't for LeBron. So even though, I have my gripes against LeBron, LeBron is putting up his typical stats. Kyrie's putting up his typical stats. Kevin Love is like a light switch. Sometimes he's on, sometimes he's off. Kyle Korver was never a number 1 option. He's gonna be a catch and shoot guy. That's his game. I can't fault him. He's shooting above 40% when he does shoot. So it's not that bad. It's the other guys. It's the Shumperts. It's the Deron Williams. It's the Richard Jeffersons. There's no reason why Richard Jefferson, for like how many seasons he's been in the league, why are you giving him 15 plus minutes?
Doesn't make any sense.
There's no you had the first 2 games you guys got blown out. Game 2 and Game 3 so far were their best games because Game 2 the Cavaliers didn't get blown out until midway through the 3rd quarter when the Warriors went on that run. And as far as Game 3, I would say that the Cavs controlled most of that game. And the most they were up by was 7, but once LeBron got on the bench, the team fell apart. So I shift the blame to the other guys and Tyronn Lue because Tyronn Lue, your coaching is getting exposed now. Because when you're a good coach, what makes you a great coach is adapting in that situation. Right now, Deron Williams is not getting it done. Shumpert's not getting it done. You're going to have to put Derek Williams in there to put an extra body in there. You're going to have to put Channing Frye because Channing Frye he's been consistent with those threes, those catch and shoot threes throughout throughout the whole
JaVale McGee comes on the court, put in Channing. I think
Exactly.
that's a good matchup.
I truly believe
that's a
because
good
at the
matchup.
same time, because they're gonna and the Warriors have been playing not a zone defense, they've been playing a man defense.
Yeah.
And if you also look at the percentage with LeBron guarding Kevin Durant, he can't guard him.
No, he
So he
cannot.
cannot guard him. I believe Kevin Durant has 31 points against him the entire series so far. His field goal percentage is like 15 for 21. He can't be stopped. But bringing in Channing Frye and getting him out of that suit, putting him on the floor, because a lot of people seem to forget last year in the finals, Channing Frye played a huge role in them ending up winning that championship and coming back from that 3-1 deficit. And having the Warriors playing that man defense on the Cavs, if you have Channing Frye, that now spreads the floor. So if you're JaVale McGee, you're not in the paint anymore. You now have to step out to respect the 3-point shot.
Exactly.
And if you bring him out there, you do a simple switch. You have a mismatch. Kyrie on JaVale McGee, he's going to beat him
Skates.
every single time.
Have him on skates.
Then if you have KD move over for the help defense, you either got somebody on the outside, which should be the Channing Frye, catch that ball, take the 3-point shot, bang. That's extra points there, but that's not happening. If you look at the Warriors bench, they may not have been putting up as much points as they did 2 years ago against the Cavs. But you have Iguodala coming in the game, giving you solid minutes. He's playing phenomenal defense. That ending block,
That block was
that
clutch.
was him.
That was clutch.
That was him.
I low-key feel that was revenge for that, off the glass
Yeah,
block.
and he got him earlier that game too. LeBron blocked him earlier that game too.
All right, so you brought up that shot. My personal opinion, that was probably one of the worst decisions LeBron made in the finals. Because we know that LeBron is not like his 3-point game. He doesn't have a 3-point game. Out of 10 shots, he's probably going to give you about 4, maybe, and that's pushing it.
I would say that for the past 2 seasons, because before when he was in Miami and all that, his 3-point shots was really good. It's the past 2 years that he hasn't really been hitting the 3-point shot. That shot, I'm a LeBron fan, but I agree. I think before the block, it was 12 seconds. He took the shot way too early. I was like, why didn't you try
the last possession?
Yeah, you have the last possession. Why would you? I don't know if you were trying to draw a foul or something, but that shot was too early in the shot. Like you could have found a better shot, worked it out. Even try to go in for an and one, make the shot and get the free throw. I don't know what he was trying to do. If he was trying to get a foul, if he just lost track of time, which I don't believe he lost track of time because he knows his basketball IQ was up there. So I just believe he was just trying to do something. I don't know, trying to get a foul, but the best thing I can say. But that was a terrible possession by LeBron himself.
And that play came on the heels of KD hitting the go-ahead 3-pointer. So at that point, they're down by 1 point. You don't need the 3.
Yeah, you really don't.
You don't need the 3. And you have Iguodala on you. Now, I'm not saying Iguodala's not a good defender, but you're LeBron James. You're the best player on the planet right now. There is no reason why you're going to step back and take that 3-pointer. And if you looked at it, it wasn't necessarily isolation, but if he gets past Iguodala, he's to the paint, he's dunking. That's it.
Easy 2 points.
That's it. If anything, take the foul. I think they might have had a foul to give. Take that foul, inbound it, or come up with a play. There's no reason why that happens. If you're going to take the 3-point shot, I believe that's Kyrie Irving's shot.
Thank you.
I believe that's Kyrie Irving's shot. There's no reason why LeBron takes that 3-point shot outside. Like, yeah, he was hot in the beginning of the game when he opened up the game. I believe it was like 12 for 13 or something like that. But at that point, you've seen the field goal percentage. It's gone down later in the game. That's not his shot. He did his team a disservice.
I think the problem with LeBron is we always come after him for not being clutch. And when he attempts to be clutch, he further proves that, look, man, you're good at creating the double team and kicking it out to someone else. All right? Go back to the Miami series against San Antonio in 2013 when he chucked up that bad 3-pointer and Ray Allen saved him because Chris Bosh got the rebound, kicked out to Ray Allen. All right. And they ended up winning in Game 7. So with LeBron, you know your game. Your game is back to the basket, drive to the paint, take the contact, finish strong. That is your game. That's been your game for the past 13 years. Never in my life do I see LeBron with 12 seconds catch and shoot at a 3-point line. And that was borderline a fadeaway.
Yep.
I don't understand the shot
that
at all.
made no sense. My personal opinion, when it comes down to the final jump shot of the game to win a game, Kyrie needs to be taking that shot. He proved it last year with that ice cold jump shot to win the series last year. So I think that we can honestly say like he has mental lapse in the fourth quarter. Like
definitely.
It's proven. Is like he's been in the league for 13 years. He showed you countless amount of times his stats goes down in the fourth quarter. His percentages goes down in the fourth quarter. I think the flack that he gets for deferring, listen, man, it's been working. It's been working.
Yes.
You have Kyle Korver. You have Kevin Love, even though Kevin Love only gave like 9 points yesterday. But still, you have enough shooters that plays the perimeter that all you had to do was catch the ball with 12 seconds, take Iguodala off the dribble, go baseline. Regardless, someone was going to step up and try to box LeBron into the paint. And all you have to do is look up. You're 6'8", so you can just look up. And even if you skip off the ground or jump off the ground, you can make a jump pass to someone that's open, and they will make a way better shot and a higher percentage shot.
What I believe when he takes shots like that, it discredits his like you said, his percentage of the shots taken. But I don't want to go and say that he shouldn't have took the shot. If he had made it, if it was like a more open shot, he could take it. If he had more space, he could take it. I don't want to say that that's not his shot. It's not necessarily his shot all the time, but we can't throw under the rug that he's made clutch shots before. So it's not like, oh, let's not never give him the ball, and when it's the fourth quarter, when there's no type, automatically give it to Kyrie. Yes, you could say Kyrie has the better percentage, but let's not just say let's not give LeBron the ball to shoot that ball, because he's made shots like that in his career.
Yeah, like the one against Orlando.
When the one against Orlando,
over Turkoglu.
he made a shot. Last year playoffs when D Rose hit the shot, the 3-point shot. The next game before he had that 3-point fadeaway shot to win the game in the playoffs. He's made a shot against this season against the Wizards where he looked at his feet, did the turnaround fadeaway and hit the three and hit the shot. The layup that he had against the Pacers when he was in Miami, when he was against on Cleveland, when he had the Pistons, he scored the last 25 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. 29 of their final 30 points.
Yeah, and then with also when he was in the Miami Heat he hit a 3-point shot. That's when he was doing the whole silencer celebration. Yeah. He hit the 3-point shot to seal the game. He's made those shots. And again, I believe also when he was in Miami, it wasn't like a game hitting. It wasn't a game winner, but it was a game tie to send the game to overtime. I forgot if they was facing the Bobcats or some kind of team like that. They was down by 3. LeBron's on top of the key. He drained the 3, tied the game. They went to overtime and they ended up winning the game in overtime. So I don't want to say he should never take those shots because he's proven that he's taken those shots before. But it's like that particular instance, it was just a bad decision.
It was a
bad decision. And I'm a LeBron fan, but that was a bad shot. He had 12 seconds. Like JR said, he could have either dribbled it in and kicked it out to somebody else, or he could have just either, to make it more of a reasonable look on him, make it the time, at least shoot the ball when there's like 3 seconds left. Then people would have been like, all right, it is what it is. But don't take a shot when it's 12 seconds left and it's the last position, possibly the last position of the game.
And he also, I'm happy that JR said that about him. His game is with his back against the basket. If we watch the entire series, he's rarely been playing from the paint out. He's been trying to facilitate from the top of the key, playing the way he used to do in Miami. Because when we looked at what happened against Dallas in the first finals when he was with Miami, he wasn't playing out of the paint, and you ultimately saw how they suffered for that. Against OKC, what did he do? That game when he knocked down the 14 jump shots. Outside of that, that was the one spectacular jump shot moment for LeBron. But outside of that, he was playing back against the basket. I'm going to drive to the paint. You're going to come over, try to play help defense. Somebody's going to be open. Bam, pick and pop, shoot the shot, assist by LeBron. It was that simple. For some apparent reason, I don't know what it is. He has this mental lapse where he doesn't want to play that form of game, and I really don't understand it. And I don't know what's going on with him.
It's been crazy because his turnaround fadeaway game has been crazy the past, I would say, 3 years since training with Hakeem Olajuwon and whatnot. That when he posts up and he does that fadeaway, I don't want to say it's Kobe. But that's what Kobe used to do. Kobe would do the post move, turn around, and shoot away, and everybody would be like, "Yo, LeBron doesn't have that in the repertoire." But the past 3 years, he's even more than the past 3 years because he had it even when he was in Miami. When you train with Olajuwon, those post moves, he's been hitting those. That's his bread and butter right there. And it's like, yo, he had it in his game now. So why don't you go back to doing that? You know, if you don't want to drive, you have that post back to the basket, turn around, fade away, and it's bread and butter. It's good. So I don't know what happened those last 12 seconds, but they got to figure it out if they don't want to get swept.
I think, all right, we can all agree that this series is over.
Pretty
The
much.
Cavs are probably going to win 1 or 2 games. We don't know. But last night was their best bet. Game 3 was their best bet of getting a win because by far that was their best game. That game was a tight-knit game. It was only a 5-point game, and the biggest lead was 7. So heading into Game 4, I know that LeBron is going to get swept again because another thing that people forget that I didn't realize it until the other day, this is going to be the 10-year anniversary for when he got swept by the Spurs.
Yep.
So in 2007, he gets swept by the Spurs. Now in 2017, he's about to get swept by the Golden State Warriors. Heading into the offseason, if they do indeed lose to the Warriors, what can the Cavaliers do? My personal opinion, I think Tristan Thompson has to go. Like, you have to trade him for another piece. People were saying, this pissed me off, of trading Kevin Love for Paul George. That makes no sense because you're getting smaller again.
Yeah, that doesn't make any
So
sense.
what do you think will be the best move for LeBron? Because also he has the 2-year player option, so they're already talking about, which I find this is outlandish. They're saying that he might go to LA, either the Clippers or the Lakers, which I personally don't want to see. I don't want to see LeBron in another jersey. I got used to him with Miami. It lasted for a few years. He belongs in the Cleveland Cavaliers jersey. What do you think should happen with the Cavs this offseason?
Well, I'm not a Cavs fan. I'm just a LeBron fan.
Yeah, of course I know that.
So I just want to see them not even go for after superstar talent. I just want to see them get pieces that could gel with the team for types of instances like this in the playoffs. They got to look at themselves and be like, listen, we can't have this kind of situation go again where we have our star players going to the bench and we have absolutely nobody to run the floor, be the floor general. They drafted Fielder. I don't know why they drafted Fielder in the first place. We seen him dunk. He was the Nate Robinson. The guy could dunk, so you're gonna draft him. If he gets better, he gets better. That's cool. But I understand. I'm assuming Richard Jefferson might leave. Channing Frye might leave. So that
Richard Jefferson might retire because
he's
he's
retired.
Old, yeah.
Channing Frye and Richard Jefferson might retire, or if Channing Frye might become a free agent. He might go to another team. Tristan Thompson is an option that people might put on the table for the trade block. I don't understand why people are saying Kevin Love should go, because if you get rid of, let's say you get rid of Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson, you're down dramatically in rebounding. You're probably down at least 15 rebounds a game if both of them go. So it's like they just need to, when so many people leave, they need to get pieces that could mesh with the team well.
Yes.
Good chemistry, and people like a David West type of character. People somebody like maybe a Sean Livingston. People like that who could come off the bench and they're gonna be able to contribute to winning a game.
So I have a question. Do you think they should go down the veteran route or go down the younger route? Because if you go down the younger route, you can possibly get a package deal, send some of those guys to Philly, try to get like a Joel Embiid or Jahlil Okafor.
I don't think I said the Pistons. Excuse me.
No,
I don't think the Sixers are
Sixers.
going to give up those.
They did not.
But what about Jahlil Okafor? Because Jahlil Okafor showed his frustration that he did not want to stay in Philly, because I was shocked when they got rid of Nerlens. I thought they was going to get rid of Jahlil Okafor because Jahlil Okafor doesn't want to play for that team. Do you think that he will be a good piece? Because like on the young side, I think that. On the older side, I doubt that they will make this deal. But what about like a Powell? Powell could be great.
I know Paul Gasol gets a lot of flag, especially from your Lakers. Somebody called him Mr. Softy.
Nah, listen, he helped bring us two more championships.
He could play ball.
I respect
Paul Gasol will be good because he could stretch the floor, and he's added a 3-point game. He's had a couple 3-point games.
Yeah.
I said 3-point games, a couple 3-point shots for the Spurs the past year. So
What about Brook Lopez?
Ooh, Brook Lopez.
Because his time in Brooklyn is over.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be
because
a good veteran piece himself.
what they need, because the issue with Thompson is he's a good rebounder, but he's not a scorer.
Yeah.
Because if
He's
they
a
can
good
get them,
offensive
exactly,
rebounder.
he's a phenomenal offensive rebounder. The thing is, if they can get a rebounding big who could put up points, like maybe if they were to try to go to Detroit and get Drummond and see if they could bring him in there.
Too much
He's
money.
it's a lot. It's a big
Yeah.
reach. It's a big reach. They'd have to try to give up something,
If
because
they would
LeBron
if
can
they would
mold
get
him
Drummond,
into something.
They would definitely have to give up Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love for Drummond.
Because they're in a situation where if they bring in somebody young, it's kind of, I don't want to say building for the future, because LeBron will get you to the finals, but you need somebody who can help you win now. because LeBron's at the point where he's entering what now, 14th year going into next year. He's not in a situation where it's like, okay, yeah, let's rebuild around me, because ultimately LeBron leaves, Cavs are finished.
Yeah, they're done.
We saw what happened already. You could try to rebuild around Kyrie, but the issue is now it's not like where you have LeBron go to the paint, Kyrie's on the floor. Kyrie goes to the paint, he goes to the bench. Who's gonna help you now? So they're in a situation where they're like what Brooklyn tried to do, where you brought in Pierce, you brought in Garnett, you brought in Williams, you brought in was Thaddeus Young already there? I think he was already there.
Joe Johnson.
Yeah, and Joe Johnson. You bring in all these other people. You want to win now, so the Cavs have to make a move so they can try to win now, because the Warriors are going to be around for a long time in the West. And the funny thing is, a lot of people, they say, I see them on Facebook giving LeBron and the Cavs flack because after watching what was happening in Game 1 before Kawhi Leonard got hurt with the Spurs, the ironic thing about it was I didn't see the Spurs end up winning the series anyway, because that could have just been the one game the Warriors lose and then they just take over and run with it.
The Warriors have too much firepower for that Spurs team to beat them to beat them 4 times. So when the Warriors were getting smacked, I think it was just remember when Miami first got together?
Yeah.
Like, they had a close series with Indiana, close series with Chicago. Like, that first year, you all together, you guys got to figure out, how to move. And because, remember, they got rid of Harrison Barnes.
Yep.
Harrison Barnes was they swapped out Harrison Barnes with KD. So, for some people will say, oh, they have KD, that's easy. No, you took away a supporting cast member, and you brought in a premier player who's going to be taking a lot of minutes away from certain players. So, with that being said, San Antonio, that first game that they blew out the Warriors, that was just more of a Popovich mind game. He's like I put him and Belichick on the same level when it comes to locker room culture and how they run their teams. San Antonio, they're not gonna beat you with flair and flashiness. They're gonna beat you through strategy. And I felt like they, outcoached the Warriors that game. But I felt like not one moment I was thinking, you know what, the Warriors might have a chance of losing this series. Not one moment I ever felt like that, because I knew this team has too much high caliber players for that series not to shift. And I think with the Cavaliers, they have to get rid of Tristan Thompson, because he's like, this year after year, he's doing the same thing.
Yep.
During the regular season, I'm grabbing rebounds, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Playoff comes and it's like, where are you? Like, you shrink, So I think they might have to go the young route, and I would say even you might not want to hear this, but even a Hassan Whiteside, like, he's another guy that they can possibly use.
I'm not a real big fan of Whiteside because he's in his prime, and I'm happy he's good on defense.
Yeah,
I give him that, but he's in his prime, or like towards the middle of his prime, and he still has no inside post game.
Yeah, offensively, I don't
like that.
I'm tall, I'll turn, I'll throw up a hook shot. I'm tall,
he's better, I believe, than Dwight Howard. That might be a push, but he's
Dwight
better.
Howard's a bum.
He's better Dwight Howard in the post, but he still doesn't have too much of a repertoire in his offensive
My grandma can score more than Dwight Howard.
To be
Dwight Howard now, I'd put him in the same conversation as Roy Hibbert.
Yep.
You were a name at one point, and I don't know what happened to
and
you.
I think
and
he's
you're
still
living
chasing
off
money.
He's living off his name right now. He's not living off his game.
I think he's about to be a free agent. He's still chasing money, and it's like, you have no offensive game.
Whatever franchise pays him is stupid.
Yep.
They're stupid.
He should be like charged with grand larceny if he gets a large.
Get to him that he needs to be like, he's not going to be the focal point. He's going to be maybe even a third option. I don't see it working out with Dwight Howard.
Serves absolutely no purpose. But going back to what JR said about Golden State, a lot of people, they thought just because KD's there, then he's gonna flourish. But then with not only did they lose Harrison Barnes, you lost Bogut, who was that master of the illegal screen. You lost him. You ended up losing. Pachulia's starting to pick it up. Pachulia's picking it up. Draymond, he's pretty much perfected it. He must have been watching Bogut tapes. And then you have Barbosa, who ended up being gone. Mo Buckets, or I should say Mo Doodoo. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad, but he was playing wonderful for Golden State. And there was another guy who was there. Festus Ezeli, ended up losing him. Those 5 gave him solid minutes. They swapped them out for Durant. The key to beating the Warriors is your starters have to beat their starters. if your starters can at least put up the same amount of points, there's no way your bench can't outplay them.
Because the Cavaliers have a deeper team.
They do.
They have a deeper team than the Warriors, but the problem is the players that are on the Warriors, their caliber outweighs the amount of bodies you can throw at them.
Exactly.
They got that chemistry. They play together for a longer period of time.
Yeah. And on top of that, like I said before, the Cavs have a deeper bench, but Tyronn Lue's not using it. He's not using them.
9-man rotation.
Like, you have to throw... Like, listen, Game 4 is coming up on Friday. Ty Lue, I know you're not listening, but if you're listening, Ty Lue, listen, man. You have a 15-man roster. You dress up 12. Play everybody. You literally have nothing to lose Game 4. Like, you got blown out in the series, and you played it tight. So you did everything you need to do. This is the time where it's time to experiment. Derek Williams needs to play. Channing Frye needs to play. If I see them in suits again, it's on you, bro.
Hey,
It's on you.
Fielder. Shoot.
Put
One of
somebody
the best defensive players we had on the
court.
bench. We got rid of him.
Man, put in Brian Windhorst.
Liggins.
Like throwing anybody.
I just don't.
Throwing the
I
Miz.
really do
He's
not
from Cleveland
understand.
too.
Well, that
Throwing
could
the
work.
Miz.
Yeah, throwing Ziegler in there
Yup.
too. Somebody from Cleveland.
Dean
Dean
Ambrose.
Ambrose.
Like everybody from Ohio.
Everybody from Ohio.
You got who you got? Alexa Bliss as well.
Well, so somebody, right? You just stand
Throw it in.
on the court, just look towards the crowd. Just OHIO. Whoever comes in, whoever's wearing the jersey, they could come in and play. I don't know what's going on. They need to spread the floor. They need somebody on the court. Those role players, they have to come in and play. The way that I see it, Game 4, I think they might get a steal win.
Yeah.
Because I personally,
Pride
I
is
don't.
on the line,
yeah, exactly.
man.
I don't think he's gonna go out and get swept. The way that I see it is LeBron's probably gonna have a situation. Probably they're gonna change the way that they play him. Maybe in the second quarter they'll have him sit a little bit more minutes than usual. So maybe he'll have a little bit of rest going into halftime. So he got to come out. I think LeBron probably goes for 50. Kyrie goes for like 35. Because the way the game was flowing last game, I thought he was gonna go for 50.
I think we might get what I forgot what game it was in the 2012 playoffs, the finals. Remember when that game where KD and Russ combined for like 90 points?
Yeah.
KD had 50 and Russ had like 45. I think they might have to pull that out. Like they might have to put 90 together. And if Kevin Love doesn't give them at least 20, he might be on the chopping block too, because you got to lay it out all on the line, game floor. You got to lay it all on the line.
It's that as well, but they also got to give Kyrie the easy bucket. They got him some easy buckets yesterday, but they need to get him more easy buckets. Like, yo,
Yeah, they definitely need to.
You can't be isolation ball the whole game.
Yeah, definitely.
You got to give him, because I'm watching even the bench when they come out, they playing isolation ball. It's like, come on, man.
It's almost like what was going on in Miami, because Miami never had an offense. It was LeBron bring the ball down. Wade runs to the corner. He'll sit there and wait. Bosh sets the screen, and then from that point, whoever's open, go around, pick and roll, throw the ball around. It's the same sort of situation. So they have to come out with a real offensive philosophy, and defensively, there's no more open shots like that. No way the Warriors are getting 15 open shots. No way. Transition defense has to show up at one point.
There were times where they like the Cavaliers won't get a rebound. Steph will get it, launch it
Outlet
down court,
pass.
outlet pass. Everyone is just watching like, I'm not even gonna put up an effort. It's like, come on. Like when LeBron's on the court, he's gonna. Like I seen it. Like they had countless of sports sciences that showed him after a missed shot, him clearing the court. By the time the person's going up for a layup, he's there, and he smacks it off the backboard, and the rest of the team is just watching. When he's not on the court, like you got to put in that effort. So now, before we wrap up, it's obvious they're gonna lose. LeBron's gonna have 5 final losses. Where does that put him as far as the GOAT status? Because we're always gonna talk about LeBron, whether he's a GOAT, he's better than Jordan. Michael Rappaport said something. That's my guy, man. That's my guy. Michael Rappaport was making a joke. He was like, all right, after this finals, when it comes to LeBron, you got to wait 30 minutes before you mention Kobe. You got to wait an hour before you mention Jordan in the conversation when it comes to LeBron. 5 final losses. Like he's second behind Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. They have 8.
Yeah.
I doubt LeBron's going to reach 8. Like there's no way he's going to lose 8 finals. If he does, then I might be the happiest man on earth. But I know for a fact,
because 8.
The hater rate is flowing.
Of course. You already know. So I don't think he's gonna reach 5. He probably reach 6, probably from final losses. But he has 5 right now. how does that hurt him because mind you, he's putting up the stats. He's averaging a triple-double. But it's not enough right now. Like, where does that leave him on the Mount Rushmore? I still think he's Mount Rushmore, but where does it put him, GOAT status?
First of all, to the Michael Rappaport situation, I appreciate Shannon Sharp the other day putting him in his place, talking about he's all Dub Nation. He's not a Warriors fan. He just doesn't want LeBron to win. And I like when Shannon Sharp say, yo, just come out and say it. Don't say you're a Warriors fan. If you want to see the dude lose, just say, yeah, I want to see you lose. That's it. That's how I am with JR's team, the Patriots. I don't like the Falcons. My favorite receiver right now is Julio Jones. I could care less about the Falcons, but I want to see the Patriots lose. And I say it to him face to face. I want to see the Patriots lose. Just come out and say it, just like that. You know what I'm saying? But as far as LeBron's legacy, it's gonna hurt him, but it depends on how he finishes. Let's say he wins 2 more and he's 500. Oh yeah, he's 500. Let's say he wins 3 more and he's 1 above 500. It depends on how he finishes. Because you could say, oh,
sheesh, you tell me he's gonna win 6?
Yeah. I'm saying if, the keyword if. I know he's my guy, but I'm not saying he's going to win. If is a major.
Not
is the
not
key.
2, not 3.
It's the major.
I know
word
that's
right
still
there.
biting him to that day. Like he put his foot in his mouth when he said that.
He did.
He should have relaxed.
He did. Time.
He was excited. He was like, yo, I finally got people to help me. He was doing it. Mr. Krabs like, oh snap,
right?
Oh snap.
Put an ear
I
in
got
his
botched.
ear for that. He was feeling himself. The way I see it is, I agree with you. It really depends on how he closes out. Because me personally, I want to have hope because I like seeing good series. Yeah. These past 2 games have been wonderful basketball, so I'd like to see good series. So I'd love to see them push 7 games, but it's probably not going to happen. I don't see him possibly losing. I do see him possibly losing another one, but it really depends on how often he's going to be in the finals. Because I think he's going to be in the finals maybe every year that he's in the East. He might play 20 years. I think he might be in the finals for the next 7 years of his career. Now, how many of those does he win? Because ultimately, if he loses this finals and never loses again, and let's just say he wins 7 championships, he'll be able to propel himself to that GOAT status. Because with this Warriors team, I give them no respect at all. I'm not gonna say they didn't have to work to get there.
That team was drafted though.
Yeah,
besides
it was. Besides KD, it was drafted. Like the first Warriors team, nothing but kudos to them. Last year's Warriors team, amazing, phenomenal. You broke a record that the Bulls set. You broke that with a bunch of drafted players. There was no big name person who said, oh, hey, come on over. That didn't happen. For KD, I don't give him the respect of you're not going to have that legacy move. Now, personally, I understand why you did it. But for me, as a player, I wouldn't be able to do it. Personally, no, the only reason why I say personally I understand why he did it is because if you think regarding business and you want to be at the top of the league, you want to win and have the cap off with that. If you truly didn't believe, hey, I could get it done in OKC, I'd rather win it with Golden State.
Yeah, but look at Chuck. Whenever they bring up the championship, bum-ass Kenny. Kenny was riding the coattail of Olajuwon. And he snuck in 2 championships when this dude was playing baseball. MJ was playing baseball, and these guys come in and they sneak 2 championships. And Kenny, he makes fun of Chuck. You could see it on Chuck's face. Chuck, AI, T-Mac. Like when T-Mac was on that Spurs team that lost to
I felt so bad because I remember watching the ending because my brother, he's a huge LeBron fan too, but he's one of the individuals who doesn't like to admit like, oh, he was bandwagon with the Heat because when they lost against the Mavs, I was pissed off. But he's like, yeah, we'll get it next year. I'm like, my man, you just cheering for LeBron. It's not the same. Then when they beat the OKC, when they beat the Spurs, he want to come over and give me a high five. I'm like, man, I put years into this thing. I remember when they got swept by the Bulls in 2007. I remember crying at church. I was upset about it. So when I look at this team, especially with Kenny Smith and back with dealing with Houston, MJ probably goes on and wins 8 finals.
Yeah.
They definitely win 8 finals. Hell, if they wanted to play in 99, had he not retired again, they would have probably won it there as well. Because I don't see them ended up losing to that Spurs team. Although they did have a David Robinson.
He went off.
But he played wonderful. And Tim Duncan was like out of his mind that series. But I think that would have made a wonderful series. Possibly the Bulls go on and win that too. But with LeBron, his legacy, it really comes down to what happens after this. Yeah. Because they have to go back to the drawing board and change up. Somebody has to be moved. How can they beat this Warriors team? Because if KD comes back next year and they have the exact same players, because I don't think anybody is gonna really be leaving.
I think Mike Iguodala, because he's been suffering some injuries.
Yeah.
Maybe Livingston.
He'll probably take a pay cut to stay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
David West. I think David West is going to retire.
Yeah, but he's not really. He's not really that big.
He was on
He's
San
just ring
Antonio last
chasing.
year.
He's ring chasing.
KD has the player option, but he's going to re-up for another 2-year deal with a 1-and-1, because I don't see KD going back to OKC until he has like at least 2 or 3 championships. So before we go, once again, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Chiseled Adonis. That's CHISELED ADONIS.
All right, thank you for being a guest on our show. You was our first guest. We welcome you back to come on anytime. Once again, check him out on Facebook, Instagram. You on Twitter also?
Yeah, on Twitter
Facebook,
as well.
Instagram, Twitter. You can check him out. I will leave his information in the description if you want to check it out. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time.